Okay, and we are live. And today I'm a little bit more excited than usual because I have a very special guest today on a channel with me. Now, I'm gonna give him an introduction for everybody who knows my channel. And if you know my channel, you're probably familiar with Taran Matharu. You maybe read his books, but you definitely know his theory about the tarot cards, the Beotux, the devil and the witch, and many developments of this theory. Now, I'm trying to be a humble person, but there's one topic that I'm very confident about, where I can be cocky. And this is From. In From, if there was like a game show tomorrow, I would be very confident that I'm going home with a prize. Unless I'm playing against Taran Matharu. Then I would be like, ugh. God, please give me help, because there is our level of Fromily going crazy, and there is somebody who is completely above us all, in my opinion. And I'm super excited to have him on the channel today to talk about the tarot card theory, because in episode 2 of season 4, we got, if not confirmation, but a very direct hint or nod towards the tarot card theory, which is basically the creators are telling Taran here, we know your theory. Maybe it's something, maybe it's not, but we're definitely gonna do something about it. So I'm gonna give the microphone to Taran. We are all here together, gathered just to listen to you, to the master. Maybe I will have some questions to you during your presentation, but mostly I will try to shut up. If anybody wants to ask Taran something in the chat, you go ahead, you can write it. I will try not to miss any question, but of course, as usual, if you want your question to be seen in any case, you can use the super chat option, and it's definitely, we're not gonna miss it. But I'm still gonna be monitoring the chat. So Taran, the audience is yours. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Igor, if we were in a competition, I would hope we'd be on the same side. Is all I can say. And I'm just going to share my screen. Let me see if this works. Can you see what I'm looking at there?
Yes, we can.
It's a Reddit post that I made 2 years ago.
I'm trying to think if we can make ourselves.
And basically, I want to talk a little bit about the scene that you mentioned, which is about which is when Tilly appears and she gets the tarot cards out. And basically, I'm going to read some quotes from what she says, which is, they played a pretty big role in my life at a critical juncture and told me about this place. Maybe not in so many words, but the signs were all there if I'd known how to read them. And then when Fatima doubts the tarot cards, Tilly says, the worst thing that'll happen is you'll look a bit silly once we're done. And I think what they're saying there is, if you do a crazy theory that includes tarot cards, they're saying go for it, because the worst thing that'll happen is you'll look a bit silly if you got it completely wrong. So I think that's what they were saying there. And I think that they're trying to say this is important. Tarot cards are important. This specific line here, they played a pretty big role in my life at a critical juncture. Now, if Tilly is the reincarnation of anyone, that might be important. And they told me about this place, maybe not in so many words, but the signs were all there if I'd known how to read them. Now, I think this is basically saying there are signs on the show that hint towards tarot cards and that you should look out for them. And I'm going to show you some of them later. Now, the question that we must ask ourselves, and I'm curious what your opinion is, Igor, I'm going to ask you a question now. Is it just symbology? Is it just metaphor? Is it just the showrunners being clever? Or could it actually be clues that are integral to the lore of the show? That is the big question, because I think we can all agree now that they're dropping tarot card hints. And, okay, midway through season 2, all the way up until season 3, my theory about tarot cards, etc., was pretty much the biggest one on Reddit. And so they probably saw it. And some people like Tony Teflon, they believe that the tarot cards are just a nod towards the most popular theory on Reddit at the time. But having it appear again in season 4 so blatantly makes me think that there's more to it. But anyway, that's my question to you, Igor. Where are you at currently on the tarot cards? And then maybe towards the end, you might have a different opinion if I show you some more connections.
Well, for me, my biggest issue with your theory is like I've obviously listened to it a couple of times with different YouTubers, and
Complexity, right?
yeah, the complexity. Like I don't see them actually revealing all this in just what is left, 18 episodes. But now
they couldn't do it.
After the second episode, as soon as I saw Jim in this pose, I was like, I need to write to Taran. You remember I was writing you in the middle of the episode. I was like, man, you're gonna have to watch the episode too. This is already not a hand. This is nothing. This is not just them already just winking to us like we're reading your comments. This is way more. So Tilly, there is the Hanged Man, and now I've seen also like there's this video that I kind of missed of the post-production team that it was done like after season 3, and I've seen that they did tarot cards especially for this scene. Now, like you can go and you can buy tarot cards, I'm pretty sure, in a lot of stores. You don't need to create new ones. And the thing that kind of like really got me there is the tower is the lighthouse. So usually the towers that's been hit with the lightning, and I'm like, okay, so it can be somehow actually connected to what happened in the end of season 1 when they built the tower and it was hit by the lightning. But when they're actually like creating tarot cards specifically for their mythology, it's probably something more there. Now, my understanding of tarot card theory right now is in the last episode, Ethan was saying not a game, is story. It felt a little important to me, so maybe it's still not a game. Maybe they're just trying to lead us in different directions. It's the thing that kind of makes sense in my head is that the tarot cards, you open them, right? And every time it's a different sequence of the tarot cards, but they still the same tarot cards. And the story in Fromville, it's repeating itself, but it kind of repeats differently, even though significant moments repeat themselves, but still it's not the same. So maybe the story repeats itself according to tarot cards being, like open, like somebody with some kind of a force opened in them for every story, for every cycle. And this is how it happens. Now, at this point, I'm okay with both options. Both tarot cards being good, like at least partially, or just being completely a nod towards us. Whatever this is, I appreciate the creators actually doing this. Let me just check if I can make a view so people will see mostly the screen and not our faces, as handsome as we are. But right now, the most important part is obviously what you're showing to us.
I'll turn my video off to make it a little easier.
Oh, it's okay. You can keep the video. It's just we're gonna be on the lower part of the video, and the screen is gonna be on the full screen. That's it. As you wish.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll turn it back on in a bit. Anyway, if you look here are some of the references to the Hanged Man. I think the showrunners have included. Jim is the only person to climb a tree on the whole show, and obviously this is a tree the Hanged Man is hanging from. He's constantly around rope. Rope is near his neck. Rope is around his body. Rope is, sort of coming across here. It's not perfect. It's not a shot like for like, shot for shot. But, that's just the director being subtle. Even here, there's a shot with the halo around his head in the background, the Dreamcatcher. And do you remember the scene where Jade sees the Civil War soldier, and then he's having his vision, and then Jim sort of appears and sort of wakes him up from his vision? Mm-hmm. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, I call it the Galadriel.
Well, in that scene, say again.
I call it the Galadriel scene. It's like in Lord of the Rings when she's coming back to save Frodo or something like this.
Yeah, anyway, it's a little bit like that. But yeah, so that that scene. Jade is looking up at light, pure sunlight, and then Jim's face appears and the sunlight recedes behind him, just like the halo. So I think this symbology is happening quite a lot. And I actually think the showrunners, they do talk to the audience. But let me continue. So Tilly, the other thing she does is she says, she discusses how weird it is for Fatima to draw the line at not believing in tarot cards when there's so much other crazy stuff happening on the show. So perhaps it's as if to say, maybe theories built around tarot cards aren't so crazy. And I thought it was kind of reminiscent of when Ellis was theory shaming Dale, as if the showrunners were showing watchers what they think of that and how it looks. So there's this scene where Ellis is acting like a douchebag, and he basically says, "It's not whatever the fuck you think it is, and no one gives a fuck, so why don't you shut the fuck up, man?" That is basically them making him appear like a Reddit troll, or someone putting someone's theory down, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I think they do this on the show, and I think that was one of the scenes that they did that. Let me just explain. I'm going to show you a few examples of how how these clues appear on the show. But I thought I'd also mention that sometimes the actors, and they don't really do this much anymore. I think it was more exciting when the show was new and they were taking part in the game. But I think after so many years, they're not doing it so much anymore, and they've sort of moved on with their lives. But especially in seasons 1 and a little bit season 2, they would hide numbers in their social media profile pictures. And I thought this was really interesting here, where they say there's a picture of him and this girl, and they're just sitting on a pier. It's not a very exciting picture, but you'll notice that it has 78 child life jackets there in between them. And there are other instances where they've used 78. Like I remember they did an escape room, and Hannah Cherami shared an image where they called themselves the 78% Club. I guess as if to say that they got 78% on the escape room somehow. Or maybe that was just what they called their team. But again, it was 78. So maybe I'm seeing patterns where they don't exist. But why is 78 important? 78 is how many cards there are in a set of tarot cards. That's another little piece of evidence that I thought I'd show you.
Taran, can I stop you just for a second? There are just a couple of, I'm pretty sure just a little bit more than a couple of people in the chat, or people that gonna watch this video in recording. They're not familiar even with your theory. They're hearing it for the first time. So just in a couple of words, without the details, let us know what actually we're talking about. What is the theory in the macro view, and then we'll deep dive into the details, okay?
Okay, fine. So before I go into too much detail, I want to talk a little bit about how I think tarot cards apply on this show. So my theory overall is that the earliest number on the wall of the lighthouse is 1506. And if you look before 1506, at explorers who went to North America, there's very, very few people who from Europe who weren't Native American. And we know these numbers are written in Western numerals. Basically, there's only a small number of people who could have potentially visited North America before 1506, and every single one of them went to one place. Do you know what that place is, Igor?
Newfoundland. Yes, I know it from your theory.
Yeah, exactly. Before 1506, Europeans only ever set foot in North America in one place, and that was Newfoundland. And the earliest one is Leif Erikson, the Viking, who came in roughly the year 1000 and actually set up an entire community, and they named that place Vinland.
Yep.
And you can actually visit the Viking ruins in Newfoundland, which is just off the coast of Canada, and you can see the Viking ruins there. And what's really interesting is that I believe that they leave us a clue to Leif Erikson on the show. So do you remember when Fatima talks about her cross-dressing friend, Charlie from Duluth?
Of course, yeah. He has the best dresses for Julie.
Yeah, exactly. So if you decide, okay, I'm going to look at Duluth and see what it might be a clue to. Do you know what the town of Duluth in North America is famous for?
No.
It's famous for its replica of Leif Erikson's ship. So it has literally a huge model replicating Leif Erikson's ship, like a life-size model. And they're famous for their beautiful park, which is called Leif Erikson Park. So I think that's a clear connection to Leif Erikson there. because Duluth is really not famous for anything else. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, the long story short of it is, I believe that the origin of the curse that created Fromland happened in John Cabot's lost expedition of 1498. And what happened was John Cabot, he disappeared on his way to Newfoundland with a colony of people, including prisoners and colonists and a priest and a sheriff and yeah, all sorts of evidence point towards this. And what's really interesting is that John Cabot's ship was called the Matthew. And the cove where the Beothuk, who are the Native American people of Newfoundland, now sadly extinct, they lived in Boyd's Cove, which wasn't far from Leif Erikson's ruins. And Leif Erikson, why did he go? What did he do in Newfoundland? He built a church there. That was his mission, was to build a church. So that church that we've seen may be Leif Erikson's church that has never been found. And it's also true that the priest who came with John Cabot, he also wanted to build a church in the New World. So it may be his church. We don't know. It could be that they're both the same church, that when they arrived there, he co-opted Leif Erikson's church and turned it into this new church. Anyway, the idea is that one of his colonists is a historical figure called Bridget of York, who was a princess who ended up becoming a nun and was never seen again. She sort of went to this nunnery and sort of disappeared from history. And it's my belief that this nun, Bridget of York, and I think there's clues to her all through the show, which I could explain, but it'll take me too long to go into it. I believe that she is accused of being a witch in Newfoundland, is tortured as a witch, and eventually has her child taken from her. And I believe that this witch is potentially the original Tabitha. And I believe that she effectively challenges the evil spirit to a game, much like you would challenge death to a game of chess. And that game, I believe, is a game called Triumphi, which is played with tarot cards. So you've got to imagine, there's this witch, she's been tortured as a witch by the colony. Now this evil spirit has come and taken over, has done a deal with the colonists who are now worshipping it as a cult, and they're going to sacrifice their children. She escapes from where she's been imprisoned and tortured. I actually believe that she's left for dead in the woods and survives, but that's separate. Anyway, she comes to rescue her kid, probably with Jade Prime, the original Jade. And I believe that part of getting this evil spirit to engage with her rather than just killing her outright is saying, I challenge you to a game. And I think that the spirit likes to play games. And she basically is actually a witch. I believe that she's a cunning folk woman. Are you familiar with what the cunning folk are, Igor?
Nope.
So the cunning folk are they are basically the white witches of England and Scotland and Wales. They basically they did stuff like, they had witches' bottles that they would put a little heart into, like a little cloth heart or a real heart, teeth, hair. They would put nails in, and urine. It was very important. How often does urine appear on the show? We have Jade peeing in the snow. We just had Victor peeing his pants. We have all sorts of references to urine. People saying pissed off all the time. So I believe that she uses a witch's bottle to trap the boogeyman. She does this spell, and in the middle of the sacrifice, when she's playing this game for the children, the spell happens and it sucks everyone in. And now what we're seeing is a continuation of this game in the world of From. And I don't think that it's just tarot cards. I think that a game called the Game of Goose, which was a famous board game at the time of John Cabot, which also had another game on the back called Pachisi. And these games had they had this type of board game table that had Pachisi on one side and the Game of Goose on the other. And on ships and explorers, they would have these big tables with multiple games on them. And isn't it interesting that we constantly see board games in the background and that big sort of octagonal version in the background? And we see people playing board games. So I think that what's happening is there was a challenge to a game using children's toys, tarot cards, and board games, but primarily tarot cards. And then a trap is sprung and it sucks everyone in. And now I believe everyone is living trapped in a bottle in Newfoundland. That's my current theory. And I think that what we're seeing is the people that are being sucked into Fromland are metaphorical tarot cards. And it's a very metaphorical game. It's not like they're actually cards on a table somewhere. It's just basically saying we're still playing that game that started all this. So is that enough background for you, Igor, on what I think's going on?
Well, I'm actually, yeah, I think for everybody who's new to the theory, it's enough.
Yeah.
I think we have like Cabot, it started all with Cabot. There is a game that is happening between a witch and somebody else. It's a game of tarot cards and something else, like as you call it, a goose. Now, for me, it's very interesting how the things that we know already are significant how they are fitting in the theory. Like, who is the witch? It's just, there is something, can I play a little bit of a devil's advocate here? Like you said that the original Tabitha, or I just didn't get you wrong. She was a princess and then she became a nun and escaped. Like this was the issue with her, or is it somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really important, to be honest, for the tarot cards aspect specifically. But I believe that the show is pointing to a woman who was tortured as a witch in the origin story of From. And I believe that the show is pointing towards specific historical figures that form an origin story. And there is a clue on the show, which is Princess Roxy of Roton. It's on one of the board games. This board game doesn't exist. They made it for the show. And you have Mrs. Liu walking with the board games, and the camera literally stops. It gives you a really good view of that top board game called Princess Roxy of Roton. And if you believe on the show that name etymologies are important, and we know that they are because Father Katri's first name is Rudra, which means root. I believe that the etymology of names is important. Like, for example, Eloise's name means sun, and on Eloise's grave there is a sun drawn. And in Henry's house there's a mirror shaped like the sun when they're talking about Eloise. So there's all sorts of connections to the sun and Eloise. So I believe that etymologies are important. And if you look at Princess Roxy of Roton, that translates best to Princess of the Bright Rose. Roton, spelled that way, points to the ancient Greek word for rose. Roxy is short for Roxana, which means bright or dawn. And if you look, Princess of the Bright Rose, well, guess what? There were, in the time of John Cabot, there was a Princess of the White Rose. Her name was, well, there were 7 of them actually, 7 daughters who were princesses, and they Prince Bridget, she basically ended up becoming a nun, and you never really hear from her in history again. And what's really interesting is that Bridget, the goddess, is known as the Bright Goddess. So I believe that clue is pointing us towards Bridget of York. And I believe that the magic involved, that the witch is involved in, is cunning folk magic. And what's really interesting is, do you know what the etymology of the surname Pratt is?
No.
It's cunning. The word Pratt, its etymology means cunning. I'm fairly certain that cunning folk magic by a British woman who was tortured as a witch, and of course we have torture being echoed at the end of season 3, which I thought was really interesting. And he uses a hammer. And do you know what the book, what was the #1 bestseller in the world at the time of John Cabot, other than the Bible? It was The Hammer of Witches, the guide to torturing witches. And guess what? He had a friar with him on his ship, Giovanni Carbonaris, an Italian friar. And guess who the majority of inquisitors were? They were friars. So I believe that there is an inquisition at John Cabot's colony. This witch is tortured, and then eventually she faces off against this evil boogeyman, who I believe is the Beatok Man in Black, who exists. That's literally what they called him, the Man in Black. And he was famous for having a sea monster pet. And I believe that that is what that tentacled creature we see is. I think that it's a representation of Newfoundland's jellyfish, which is the red lion's mane jellyfish. In fact, the cove that Leif Erikson arrived in Newfoundland was called Jellyfish Cove. And it's a red jellyfish, which is quite interesting. So that's where that's why I have Bridget of York as part of my theory, because I believe that what John Griffin has done is he's taken real historical figures who sort of disappeared from history or were executed or whatever. I believe that he puts these people on John Cabot's ship. I think that Bridget leaves the nunnery because she was kind of forced into there a little bit by the new king who replaced her father. There was kind of like a rebellion at the time. And did you notice how many roses there are on the show, Igor? Have you seen roses in the background, that kind of stuff?
There are some things that I focus on, and there are some things that I like. My radar is completely off. Like the colors, everybody keeps telling me there's a lot of blue and yellow, and there are some like flowers. This is my wife is always angry at me because she's like showing me flowers. Look, this flower, and I'm like, it's a flower. The only one I can recognize is a rose, and even there I'm a little bit slow. So flowers is completely not my expertise. Okay.
Well, it's just interesting that Fatima has a red rose at the start of the show when she's being painted by Ellis. And then there's also a painting of a white rose. And what I found really interesting is that the Tudor rose, I don't know if you can't see it, but I'm going to try and find it. There is a new curtain added to the show in season 3. And what I found really interesting is that it looks like a Tudor rose. And I'm going to see if I can find it. Oh yeah, here it is. I don't know if you guys can see it or not.
We are seeing only your browser, I think.
Yeah,
like,
I'm going to have to send it to you.
While you're doing that, can you also expand like in the biggest question from how they fit in the theory? Like, who is the man in yellow? Who is the boy in white? What is the Lake of Tears? The fairies that
I don't have answers. I don't have answers for those things because I really don't think that they've given us the I don't think they've given us the information we need to answer those questions, to be perfectly honest. So let me send you this, and that is what the Tudor rose looks like. And then sorry, you can show it later. Apologies for being so disorganized, Igor.
It's okay. It's live, man. Everything happens in live. I didn't prepare you for this, so you don't have to apologize for anything. We're kind of winging it, so it's okay.
The other thing I thought I'd mention is that there are a lot of cards hidden in the background on the show. I think you went through some of them, but I have a set of screenshots. I can't find them at the moment. I don't want to distract everyone while I look for them. But I have a set of screenshots where people are constantly playing cards in the background of the show. Mm-hmm. They are scattered everywhere. When Jade is talking to Kenny and he's saying, I'm going to figure out what's going on in this place, he's literally holding a pack of cards in his hand that he's flailing about. Like, they hide cards everywhere. Tilly's playing solitaire. Cards appear all the time. So anyway, here, let me run through some pictures that might help you understand where I'm coming from. So look here, this is the Fool card. Mm-hmm. This is the most powerful card in the deck, so it makes sense that it would be Boyd. In fact, there's one point where Boyd is in the church and he literally calls himself a dumb mother effer, which is a reference to the Fool. Mm-hmm. Also, what does the Fool do? The Fool is a fool because he's a sort of silly character who follows a dog everywhere, and eventually the dog leads him off a cliff and he jumps off the cliff. He follows the little dog off a cliff. That's why he's a fool, right? Do you see, can you see the little illustration in the bottom left there?
Yeah, of course. It's on the screen, yeah.
Yeah, so the little dog, the fool follows him off a cliff, and he also carries stuff in a bundle. And what's interesting is we literally have a scene where Boyd drops all the rocks and then takes off his shirt and carries the talismans in a bundle. Then later, when he's picking up his bags to go into the woods with Sarah, instead of holding the bag by the handles like a normal person, he picks them up in a bundle. And then who is the only person on the show who follows dogs around? It's Boyd. He's constantly following dogs. They even have him following a dog somewhere at the end of season 2, and then in season 3 we never find out where that went or why, what happened. And then here's what I found really interesting. You've got Boyd here chasing, he's following the dog for the first time. And what I found really interesting is they have this log and a little bit of a slope here that he jumps over to follow the dog, almost like it's the moment where the fool follows the dog off a cliff. And doesn't he get lost in the forest that night? And luckily comes across the talismans. So, I think that's interesting. So I'm going to scroll down here to a few more images that I shared before. Let me see where they are. I'm sure I saw them earlier. Oh, yes. So here's one with Tilly. I found it really interesting that Tilly has these 2 mugs in her hand, and she's pouring, water into them, and she has triangles on her shirt when she first appears. So she may be representing the Temperance card here. I find it interesting that the boy in white is accompanied by 2 dogs because the Moon Tarot card, let me see if I can find it. The Moon Tarot card has has a wolf and a dog on the front. So I think he might be representing the Moon card, potentially. Here's Jade. Jade has a cat t-shirt, talks about Schrodinger's cat, and he has infinity symbols with him all the time. I actually found way more instances of him with the infinity symbol. In fact, if you rewatch season 1, when Jade is on the ground and he's being treated by the doctor, whose name is suddenly, I'm blanking it for whatever reason, Christy, there is literally an infinity symbol drawn on the bottom of his shoe. And in the scene where he goes into the caves with the thread is literally tied into an infinity symbol while he's walking with it. So here's Katri. He's clearly the Hierophant, the priest figure. I find it really interesting that he's meditating between these stones, these sort of stone pillars, which is what the Hierophant does. He's depicted as between 2 pillars. And also there's this stack of 3 crosses here in the background, very often in the church when Catrice has a scene. And you'll see here that he actually has this staff that has 3 crosses going. And there's even the 3 rafters here. I found this shot quite evocative of that thing that he carries there. The Lovers is almost certainly Ellis. He actually has this drawn on the sleeve of his jacket now. This drawing here. He has it on his jacket too. So he's clearly the Lovers. And there are way more. I just haven't gone into them. Ethan is probably the little man, the wizard. He has this like red cloak, and Victor gives him this red coat. He has this wizard staff that he walks around with. The High Priestess, she's famous for holding the Torah. And Tabitha literally hands Katri a copy of the Bible that Miranda was writing. The Empress is probably Fatima because she's pregnant. Nathan is probably the Emperor because of the 2 goats that he has. You can see here. There's all sorts of cards that people could be. I think Bacta could be the Chariot because she's the coach driver. What you've got to understand, Igor, is that the way that we see tarot cards today is not how tarot cards were used in the 15th century and 16th century. There were no use of tarot cards to predict the future or tell you anything magical. They were literally just playing cards. And that is how they are used on the show. So when we see the symbology, we're not like, oh, the Hanged Man means a sacrifice or danger or something. It's literally just the card. So we're not looking for metaphorical interpretations. We're looking for literal interpretations of the card itself.
Can I ask you, though,
I think Tom the barman might be Justice because he says, I feel like I'm holding court. What I found really interesting is that Bing Kang Lu, he always wears black. The king, the bishop, and the knight are chess pieces. And I'll show you. There's literally, where is it? This is the knight's tarot card, and there's a bishop, a knight, and what else? Sorry.
Yeah, he's
lost my
saying
train of thought.
night scary, night scary. I remember this one.
Yeah, and there's graves behind him with RIP. Here's something interesting that you might find benefits the John Cabot theory. So there is a story about John Cabot. He traveled with the sheriff of Bristol. Oh my God, what was his name? Richard Amarike, his name was. And Richard Amarike, when John Cabot had to fund his expedition, he went to his friend who was a salt merchant, Richard Amarike, who was also a sheriff, and he said, and they went to Newfoundland together. And when they got there, John Cabot said, because you funded the expedition, you may name the place that we discover. And so Richard Amarike, he claimed, his family and his descendants claimed that America was not named after Amerigo Vespucci, but was actually named after Richard Amarike. And indeed, the flag of America, some say the stars and stripes, are based on his coat of arms. So Richard Amarike was named, claims to have named America, and he was on John Cabot's expedition. Now, what does Bing Quan Lu say about his son? My son want America name. That's what he literally says. My son want America name. No. In fact, he says he wants America name, as if naming, as if it's a reference to naming America. Why have they shoehorned the sheriff onto the show? Because there is a sheriff in the origin story. The sheriff of Bristol. Just like there is the priest. Oh my God, how am I blanking?
Do
his
you
name?
think that the priest, while you're trying to remember the name, do you think that the priest has any connection to the man in yellow, since Sophia is really good with the Bible now? Like we can see her quoting the Bible, telling the story about Ahab and how he betrayed the Israelites, etc.
Yes. Well, my belief on who the bad guy is I actually believe that there are 7 evil spirits potentially in this place, 7 angels, 7 fallen angels, 7 watchers. And I believe that they're the angels that gave knowledge to humanity and then were punished by God for it collectively. And I believe that Azazel, the angel known as for being the scapegoat, and isn't it interesting that there's a goat being hanged in pieces, like a sacrifice from a bag, and Azazel, the fallen angel, is who the scapegoat is sacrificed to, and you put all of your sins in the goat, something like that. You probably know about it more than me. But I thought that was very interesting as well. So I actually think that all the biblical references are because in the origin story, this all starts with 4 humans and 7 fallen angels in a sort of corrupted version of Genesis. And that's what I believe. So that's, if you're curious why I think they're referencing all these biblical things, I think it's partly because the boogeyman, for whatever reason, hates priests or loves priests or has some obsession with priests because of the role, the inquisitor, the friar, this priest, Carbonarus, his name was. So, this is the priest who was an Augustinian friar, and he may have founded a mission settlement and North America's oldest church since the Norse settlements in Greenland. Although because they never found if Leif Erikson actually did build that church. And he disappeared. They never saw him again. So it could well be. And here he is. Ruddock claims that Carbonarus outfitted a ship which accompanied the 1498 expedition. The ship carried other Italian friars who, with Carbonarus, are believed to have established a church and religious community in Newfoundland. So that's where I'm coming from on that, on where the Christian stuff is coming from. I believe that the origin of the monster, of the big bad, is a fallen angel who eventually becomes the evil spirit, the man in black that the bear talk fear. And I believe that there are others somewhere involved in this, potentially. That's about it.
Well, that's about it. I've seen you talking about this theory. That's about it, like in general speaking, without going to every little detail. I would love for you, honestly, like you said yourself, there are some things that so far this theory cannot answer. Maybe there's something that it's really, like the burning questions of from like. I remember you having troubles with the reincarnation. Like you and me both, we really didn't like this trope that they're going
I don't
to.
love it as a mechanic. Yeah.
And now we have like there's a couple of things that's kind of bugging me a lot, but I'm not gonna get into it because they're just from the trailers so far. So and maybe some people choose not to see them, so I don't want to go to spoilers of this situation. Are there still something that you want to add to this theory? Like there, what was this force that was trying to push from under the RV in season 2? What's with the Julie's story walking powers? Where they are coming from? Why is this place stuck like this and you cannot leave it? Why is it rounded? The significance of Miranda's drawings. Like there are many things that I can ask you, but I just don't want to go through like this question, is it yes or no? This question, yes or no? So do you think there's something that is of value that you can add right now from the theory to the people in live chat, like especially for something that's really like how do you escape this place, how do you save the Nkui children, because according to the boy in white you need to save the children to to get out of this place, and according to Ethan also, like, so is there something that you want to add, like without going into like Tabitha was seen given the Bible and this is she is the card, but more of like macro big questions like that. Basically, I'm not looking here for an answer, definite answer like this is it, but maybe this is how it fits into your theory. We can brainstorm together if you want.
Sure. I mean, I don't think that the game that is being played has anything to do with the rules of tarot cards and the rules of the board games. I think that just forms a part of what created the world of Fromland. So I think that the pieces of the board game and the pieces of the cards and the toys from the children, I think that they sort of all got sucked into a witch's bottle and metamorphized into a world, into a place that became Fromland. But I believe that the game that is being played is actually a game that 7 immortal angels and 4 cursed humans who reincarnate constantly are playing. And I believe that these humans are Lilith from the Bible, Adam, Eve, and potentially Cain.
Lilith is not supposed to be a demon?
Lilith was the first human, but she became a demon. So Lilith in apocryphal texts was the first woman, and then she refused to sleep with Adam, instead cheated with an angel called Azazel, created all sorts of babies, and then God killed all her children as punishment, and she was cast out along with the angels into the world. And that's the story of Lilith. And then Adam was given Eve instead. In the story of Lilith, in that version, not in Genesis, the official Bible, but in the apocryphal texts linked to Lilith, in that version, Lilith refuses Adam, goes with an angel instead. In some versions, it's Azazel. In some versions, it's another angel. In some versions, it's the devil, the serpent. But ultimately, she has children with angels, and then she is punished for it and becomes a demon, basically. Do you know what's also really interesting? Victor constantly references owls. In his interviews, he said that Victor's spirit animal is an owl. When he meets fans, he draws an orange owl for them. And isn't it interesting that knowledge has owl cut out of it in the middle? And Elgin talks about owls as well, the knitting of the little owl. And we actually see a picture of a little boy beside what looks like a basket and an owl flying out of it in Eloise's drawing. So I think that owls are something on the show. Do you know what Lilith is connected to? Lilith is connected to the owl. Her name literally means screech owl. So I think that it's a clue to Lilith, in my opinion.
Do you think that we have seen the seven angels through the 3 seasons? Like there were at least hints on them somehow? Are there some of
I
the
think that
characters?
the boy in white may be one of them. I think that the man in yellow is another. I think that there's probably a leader of the angels who we haven't met yet, potentially. It may be that the man in yellow works for them, and they sort of control the world of Fromland. But I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I'm not theorizing about like the people. I'm more focused on theorizing about what the origin story is and less about how the world of Fromland works. And I'll tell you why. I was
Okay.
very, very disappointed with the end of season 3. I felt like the music clues, the numbers did not correspond to the music. It was an unsolvable puzzle. It really confused. Why would children hang encoded numbers that correspond to notes that could only be remembered by one person on a tree in numbers? And why can they only say Ankui? And what does it mean? Like, it just, I don't have answers for any of these things. I think that it's all original lore. I think that they made it up as they went along. I think that they had a really troubled filming of season 3 because of the weather, because of the strikes, because of the very compressed timeline. I think that there was a writer's strike as well, and John Griffin chose not to write during that period, so it may have been quite a rush script as well. But I didn't love it, to be honest. I didn't understand it from a storyteller perspective. It just felt random and awkwardly inserted. So I don't know, really. I'm not trying to guess too much how the world of From works. And I know that's a bit of a cop-out. I'm guessing from abstractly that these fallen angels are in this world. They're able to possess people. They're able to take a form and shapeshift. I think that possession is definitely a big part of this show. I think that Boyd was going to be possessed by one of these angels, the cicada monster. We don't know yet if the cicada monster is the same as the man in yellow. We don't know yet if the kimono wraith is a monster of her own. So there are options for who could be these fallen angels. Potentially. It may be that there's not 7 of them. It may be that there's just one, Azazel. But I believe that there's some involvement in Genesis, Lilith, the Watchers, the Book of Enoch. I think that's where this centers. I think that's where these monsters come from. But I think that they live a long time in the world as these cursed beings, and they become the monsters that are encountered in Newfoundland by these colonists. But I think that their origin story goes all the way back to ancient biblical times. But when they're encountered for the origin story, they've already become these sort of corrupted monsters, these angels.
Okay, I really love the whole history part, even if it's not coming through. Like I love to learn this. And when I first got familiar with your theory, I even made a video about this one, I think in my Russian channel. And I didn't want just, to take your theory and just translate it to Russian and then just tell it to people. I dove into it. I was looking at the map. I was looking at the jellyfish monster, and I was reading all about it. And a lot of it really made sense to me. And as I told you, even if it's not going through, I just want to thank you for creating this theory, because it made me smarter and I know now way more things. And I used to look like at Alice's medallion that he's wearing, like a necklace, and it looks like an arrow and a flower. And according to Beltuk legend, like the first human was created by, or the first Beltuk was created by some god shooting an arrow, and the arrow hitting the ground, and the person like came from the ground. So I would make those connections from your theory. If you remember, just about a year and a half ago, when I just started to do this thing in English, and I got invited to, I think, Real Enigmas and Theories live stream, and we were there together. and I did a couple of other live streams there. Everybody always, like, since I was new, everybody was asking me, so Igor, what do you think this is it? What do you think is the answer to all of it? And I would always answer the same thing. I don't really care. I'm just enjoying the journey, like, because nobody's gonna guess it 100%. Now I think we have way more to build on, and with every episode of season 4, it's just way more information, and it looks like the picture is getting clearer and clearer. But just for, just because we get to meet cool people, we get to discover new things, we get to learn history, we get to learn interesting facts and details that I would probably never learn if it's not from, right? Like I was living in Israel.
I know way too much about the years. I know way too much about Europe in the years leading up to 1498. I know way too much about that time period now because that is the time period I've focused on the most. And I can tell you this, I think I know every historical young woman who was alive in the years leading up to 1498 that existed. Because it's not that, it was a sexist time back then. Women did not have, much of a role in society. And, there were women who had held power and were of substance and historical note who existed at this time. But there's just not as many as men. And I knew in my research, for my theory, obviously, that there is some sort of girl who is accused of being a witch. And I was like, I feel like there's all these historical figures being referenced. I feel like John Griffin would use a real teenage girl or a woman in her early 20s or something. Mostly because of the way Sarah was treated. I thought it was quite witch-like, being shunned. And there's all sorts of references to witch torture on the show, in my opinion. Like people are just walking around with hammers in the background, like just randomly holding hammers and stuff for the hammer of witches and whatever. But and so I spent so long researching women who existed during that time period, and I actually saw Bridget of York, who I ended up settling on, and ignored her because I was like, oh, she was in a nunnery. But it was when I saw that board game, Princess Roxy of Roton, and I saw this reference to a white rose, and I was like, oh my god, it could be one of these princesses. And I realized that she was the only one who basically disappears from the historical record. So she's the only one who it could possibly be. Anyway, sorry to wax lyrical about my love for Bridget of York. I find Bridget of York fascinating as a character. And what's really interesting actually is I own my family and we're in the hotel industry, and one of our hotels was actually the only place that Bridget of York visited other than the nunnery and like one or two palaces. She had a very sheltered life. Her family were on the run for most of their lives, hiding in Westminster Abbey. And then she briefly got sick and she stayed in our building for a few days. And then she went back to the Abbey. And then from there, she went to like one palace, one funeral, and then she got stuck in a nunnery. And so like it's one of 4 places she's ever been. So if it does turn out that Bridget of York was the witch, and I am right about what Princess Roxy of Roton means, then that would be a really cool coincidence that I've like been where she's been.
Then the creators need to send you a ticket and get you to Canada and just present you like. A part of our writers team is Taran Matharu. He didn't even know that, but now it's been revealed that he was one of the writers of the TV show. Yeah, I mean, your theory is amazing. I mean, as I'm telling you, like, and it does look like at least part of it is going to be true somehow. But even if it's not, like, hats off, just, like, I don't want to, like, without using any better word in my head right now, because English is my third language, I don't want to shit on other people, but sometimes I used to watch, like right now I'm not watching any other creators, but me, I don't want to like get anything in my head other than my ideas. But I used to watch a lot of that, and sometimes it's like, it's just, okay, so he went there, it means that there's like no basis for the theory, like it's basically just fantasy, just some imagination that it's used there. And or like when I get to know those kind of theories, which is basically the research that's been done, I doubt that the creators themselves are doing that much of research in making their show. It's just a huge amount of respect for you and for your work here, and just it's inspiring us also. I think I can speak for myself only, but I would never notice and deep dive on the stars are falling on the license plate and actually go back to the meteor shower of 83 or something like this and start researching it and who were the people, how they were reacting, how the the religious community, how the scientific. I would never do this. I think if it's not for people like you, because you're raising the standard for everybody else. So for me, it's a great honor to have you here, and I hope we're gonna have more chances to talk here on my channel, to host something whenever you're free. Like I told you, the invitation is open whenever you want. Sunday night diner, you can join me, or we'll find different time.
Yeah. Should we take some questions from the audience?
Yeah, right now I'm just the live stream.
If
The
you have
chat,
time.
the chat is like way too long for me to go in and find everything. So if anybody wants to ask Taran something, make my life a little bit easier, write Taran, comma, and then the question. So I will be able to actually notice that on the notice the question, and then I can direct it to Taran.
Okay. While we wait, I have these two images I've sent you on Discord. I was wondering if maybe we could take a look at them.
Let me see if I can share my screen. No, I unfortunately I can't. For some reason I can't. Sorry, it writes to me that I need to open settings and then open it, but it's my Mac, so I'm gonna need to restart it. And if I restart
No, don't worry.
then
Maybe I can share my screen and show it. Hang on. Sorry. Showing it. Is it working?
It's loading, and now we can see watch stream. It's not watch stream. Yeah, I can see your screen now.
Oh, I think it's picked the wrong.
It's right now picking up the Discord.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're
Good.
seeing
That's
your. Right now, we're seeing ourselves in YouTube.
Oh, it's sharing the wrong thing. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Sorry, guys. Change stream. Just entire screen. There we go. Okay. Can you see this?
Yep, that's the roses, the flowers.
Yeah. So I know it's blurry. I know this is classic, like, oh, he's found some blurry image and he's making a big deal of it. This curtain did not exist before season 3. Okay, I know, I checked. They added this. Okay, so let's see if it's a clue. So you can see this border of red and then the white in the middle. This is the Tudor rose. Okay, Bridget of York was from the white rose group, and the king that replaced her uncle and father, because it was her father was replaced by her uncle first, and then another king came, Henry Tudor. He was of the red rose. And when Henry Tudor united the houses by marrying Bridget's older sister, they united the Tudors and the Yorks, and they created this, the Tudor rose. And this is what Henry VIII had. This is what Elizabeth I had. This was the symbol of the Tudors. And they created the Tudor rose. So I believe that is what the white roses and the red roses on the show represent. That's what I think the word roton represents. And that's where I'm coming from.
We have here a question to Taran. Do you think that Donna is a bad character? Is she working for the bad guys or for the good guys?
Well, she does have her hands in her pockets a lot, which is one of the first things that they teach actors not to do. Maybe it's a conscious choice. Because it's something that people do automatically, so they're like, don't do it. But maybe if you make a choice to do it, it's okay. I'm not saying it's bad acting. I'm just saying it feels like a conscious choice. And I wonder whether there's something there, something suspicious about it. She's also been there the longest, other than Victor,
Yep.
which I think is suspicious because, she's lived this whole time. She hasn't died. I mean, I know Dale didn't either. But I don't know. There's a little bit suspicion there.
I'm gonna add to this a little bit because Donna is one of the major characters. In every major character, we know their story before they arrive to this town, and we know what hope was taking place. Like we have Christy, the hope to get married. We have the Matthews, the divorce, the change in life, hope for a new life. Boyd, retirement, hope for a new life. Kenny was saying that we were driving to this place, and I was filled with hope that somehow the life was gonna get better. He was saying it to Katri. Katri with hope, he heard voices, he heard the calling of God. Everybody has a story somehow with the life change. Jade selling a company, Bhakta finishing, everybody has it. Donna, I was hunting with my sister, and we have the picture of a sister, and a corner of it it's missing, and it's something on it is scratched, which is usually.
I had theories about that. I thought that we would see on the back of the picture that it would prove that it wasn't Donna's sister. Or I for a while I thought that the woman that she claims to be her sister was the real Donna, and that she stole Donna's story and stole her name and her life. That is that potentially could be true. I mean, here's what's also interesting, right? If you were a shapeshifter, and you were trying to look like someone, I mean, it's the only person there's a photo of in Fromland, is all I'm saying. So potentially, I'm just saying there's something about that photo that gives me a bit of suspicion. However, I have no evidence other than Pockets being there the longest and having a sort of suspicious sister photo. That's about it.
Well, in the last episode, when Tabitha was putting the note to Donna so she'll take care of the children, they kind of stayed on the photo again. And it kind of feels like in season 4, since they're about to reveal a lot of things, there are a lot of like...
Yeah, they're reminding us.
The cinematic language of reminding us, the audience, okay, you have to go round and round. So, there's got to be something with the merry-go-round. Reminding us about this image, reminding us about the calendar of the Rendezvous Move calendar. So there's a lot of like these things... Because they know that we are about 5% of the audience. Most of the people are just watching, and I got so many questions about after episode 1 of season 4. There were so many comments about why did Julie didn't tell anybody that she saw the man in yellow killing her father. Like, people are watching and not even getting that there's future Julie. So they need to dump it out for the regular audience, not the one that watched this 75 times like us. So there's a lot of reminding. So I think the photo will play a role. And since we got a confirmation that John Griffin is reading our theories, even I'm not visiting Reddit. I'm not a big fan. I tried it, was not really my thing. But he's definitely watching YouTube's. So I'm pretty sure his processes maybe even I'm guessing it here, but I think that his processes, he's seen something interesting, and he probably asking himself, can I implement this in my lore? If it goes completely against it, but if it's a very interesting one and it fits his lore, then maybe this is something that we will see now.
I totally believe that Tony. Do you remember how Tony made this huge deal about seeing this sort of shadowy figure next to a tree in that scene where they're in the upturn, where they're in the RV and they're trapped there, and then there's the knocking that you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. And then who's now Tony? In this season we have Tony Teflon he's another YouTuber.
Yeah,
he's the
guy with the
alien.
I was thinking film. About a character trying to...
Oh, yeah, sorry. So Tony Teflon, I know his video. Yeah, sorry. He made a big deal about it, and it went viral, and there was all this debate, and he used AI to try and show what the face would be. And then I think that it was just one of the extras who was slightly in shadow, personally. But because it became such a thing on Reddit and on YouTube and people discussing it, that I wonder if John Griffin was that would make a good scene to show Julie's first story walking. Well, actually, we'll show. Yeah, Julie was there. You were right, Tony. So I wonder whether that kind of thing happens. So I agree with you.
So there's a very interesting question in the chat, and I actually want to expand on that. So I'm kind of missing already. Yeah, Taran, there is a lot of English history in it, but it's more of an American-Canadian show. Why do you think they would have used so much English history? And I want to expand a little bit on this theory because you were talking about the Vikings. And we have the crows. We have the
Yeah,
one-eyed person, which is obviously a reference to Odin and his crows. Can be,
yeah,
makes sense. The trees on the talismans, they very much like the Scandinavian symbols. Now, I was talking about this in my video. There's also the African mythology. There is the hoodoo magic, there is the bottle tree, there is the very good reference to the spider god, the story god, and there is the Ankoye, which means things are gonna get bad in, I don't remember, in Namibian
yeah,
language or something like this. So there is this American history, there is this English history, there can
yeah.
be difference. We have the Japanese spirit, which kind of, I think maybe can be Yorogumo, which is a Japanese spirit that controls little fiery spiders that when they bite you, it's very painful, just like with Boyd. So do you think they're actually implementing, like this is a part of an answer, like this mythology, or they just taking inspiration from, let's say, mythologies, Lovecraft, etc., and they creating something their own? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I will say this. If you have created a mystery show, presented it as a puzzle that can be solved, loaded the show with clues, and then the answer is an original lore that has no basis in history, mythology, esotericism, occultism, no framework that it hangs itself on, and it's completely original, just like Lost, right? Lost isn't based on, it's its own mythology, it's its own lore. There's a man in black, there's a boy in white, whatever. Man in white, there's the lady who washes up on the shore, who they never really explain where she came from, whatever, right? They had their own lore. If From is doing the same thing, I think I will be very disappointed because it basically was unsolvable, in my view. If you don't have a framework to hang the clues against, then all they've done is just covered the show in all sorts of esoteric symbols that seemed cool, and then they're just going to come up with the answers. It's like, why leave clues that can't be solved? It needs to map onto something in the real world for a clue to make any sense, in my opinion. But I may be wrong. I feel like John Griffin is concerned with colonialism. He's concerned with the history of Europeans in North America. I think that he's very concerned with Americana and American history and American vibes. And I think that's fairly obvious from what we see on the show of the flag, flapping around,
Flag,
and
yeah.
people only appearing from North America. I keep seeing clues pointing to things that I've predicted, and I keep seeing almost no answers, just more plot, no explanations, and sort of stuff that I just can't make sense of. The notes and a lot of it I don't make sense. I can't make sense of it. So I'm just waiting for more lore to be revealed so that I can try and dissect what's going on. At the moment, I feel like we don't have enough information, and we really won't know anything until they give us at least something to latch onto historically. And at the moment, we have nothing.
Well, we have this conversation with John Griffin, like on Emmanuel Iman's Noisette channel, and he was saying, like, the first time he was talking to John Griffin launched this a long conversation explaining all the lore of this place, historical wise, etc. So, in my opinion, this is like a direct confirmation that there are gonna be some historical events, and my opinion is basically I want From to stand on its own legs. Like, you can take inspiration, but like Lost, you said it yourself, they kind of created this puzzle box without knowing how to solve the puzzle box themselves. They were just, okay, let's wing it. And hopefully From is doing it differently. Now we have also a very interesting question here from oddfinch1244. Taran, what's the most interesting place to start researching for any of your theories? Like, if somebody wants to dive in, just like you, to go through this process, where would you advise them to start? What to read on? Like, what is the theme?
I would start with the explorers who visited Newfoundland before. In fact, it's Newfoundland is how you pronounce it. I always get it wrong. Newfoundland. You look at the explorers who reached Newfoundland before 1506. You will see that the list is very small, and they are pretty much the only people who could have been involved in a curse on North American soil before 1506. They are literally the only Europeans. Otherwise, it would have to be a purely Native American origin story, which I just don't think they do. And they have those English, people have carved. There's no numbers before 1506. It's no coincidence that this is basically around the time that Europeans started arriving in North America. Maybe it's a big red herring and they've just put it there to mess with us. But I just think that would be unfair of them to do so. It's like, okay, let's just put clues around that don't link to anything. We'll have the numbers start after 1506, just so that people think it's a colony. But I'll tell you one thing, dude. Have you read the original pilot script for From? The original?
Parts of it, not the whole of it. Like I read about Jade being the 18-year-old girl, 19-year-old girl. Like just took some couple of points for my video. That's it, but not the whole episode.
So I found something really interesting. I think that what's more interesting than what's there is what they changed, right? And what I found super, super interesting is that during the opening scenes, they had an exchange between Tabitha and Jim when they're in the RV before they arrive in Fromland. Mm-hmm. And literally they had the most awkward phrasing, which I think was how the showrunners presented clues in a really obvious way to the producers that they were pitching to and the distributors that they were pitching to. And that is, for some reason, Tabitha turns to Jim and says, "Aye, aye, Captain." And then Jim turns to Tabitha and says, "You got it, Chief." Captain and Chief, explorer and leader of a Native American tribe. It seems like the origin story has to involve a ship's captain, which would be John Cabot, and a Native American chief who would be the chief of the Beartalk tribe. In my view, the pilot script had really obvious clues put in it so that they could explain how they're going to do clues on the show to the executives. And then when they come to actually writing the real pilot script, they're like, wow, this is obvious. We've got captain and chief, one after the other. That just seems too obvious. We're going to change that, make it more subtle. And they cut it. So I really do think the origin story has to start with those people. So look into John Cabot. He goes to Newfoundland, discovers it, comes back, gets a colony together, disappears in 1498, never seen again. But what if they arrive there, start their colony, and then it's all, and they sacrifice their children to this Native American god? That's how I think it's. There's also two Portuguese explorers, brothers, who disappeared one after the other in Newfoundland. And they captured Beartalk people, massacred them, and took them back to Portugal. And they were called the Corte Real brothers. Mm-hmm. So they also went to Newfoundland in 1502 and 1503. So I think that it all centers around these people.
I have a question for you. Actually, once again, maybe don't have an answer. I myself still don't have an answer for it, obviously. Like this place is locked, right? Since when is it locked? This is contagious, by the way. I want to sneeze too right now. Seasonal allergies?
Yes, I have terrible allergies. Really bad.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm at my father's place and he lives out in the countryside, and it just kills me every time I come here.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Anyway, here we are.
So the question is basically, we have like this is driving me insane. Maybe it's just some of it, maybe just the creators are not really knowing just making a mistake. But we have like this place that it was probably, the original curse was in, let's say, 1506, right? So this place is outside of this world, outside of real world from 1506. But we do have houses from 1950s. We do have them, and we have the music box with songs like the If I Had a Boat song. I think it's 1983 or something like this. This is already very close to where we are right now.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine somebody actually coming with a music box in the 2000s and it has all the songs, and there are a couple of those. So it's there. The
Yeah.
technologies, all of them are from the 70s. I was covering this in one of my reviews. It's like the
Yeah.
fridge and everything in the colony house. How does it even get in this place? Like how this mechanic works if this place is locked since the 1500s or even 1670s, 18s, whatever? Do you have any idea about that, or it's just blank?
Honestly, I have no idea. I don't know. I think that some of these buildings existed during the time of the colony. I think the church is where the confrontation happens. I think it's where I think it's where the children were sacrificed or nearby or something. I find it interesting that the children are on stones, because the Vikings were the people who had stone circles and the Celts. But really, the only people who would have built a stone circle in North America would have been Leif Erikson's people. And they were. What's really interesting as well is that there's a story of Freydis Eriksson, Leif Erikson's sister, who came to Vinland after he built his church. And there's this whole story of how a whale washed up on the beach, and the Christians believed it was a miracle from God, and the pagans believed that it was a miracle from their gods, and they had a big fight. And then later she accused falsely some of the pagans, or maybe the Christians, I can't remember which way, of assaulting her, and then they go and slaughter them all. And it's this whole story about it. And I wonder whether this Freydis Eriksson, this Christian versus pagan story about her, might potentially form part of this origin story. I think that there's a repeating cycle, and yeah, I don't know how Leif Erikson, who was there 500 years before John Cabot, comes into play. I wonder whether it's just like a prequel where the Vikings come, they build a church, and then they're all slaughtered by this god, and we just get to see where the church came from. That might be what it is.
I actually don't think we're gonna actually see some like prologues, like those flashbacks. I don't think MGM even has a budget for it. It's just probably the technical issue here. Now, there's also something about the church that I'm still not sure about the church, by the way. Is it really church? Because there are no signs of church in this building other than what the new settlers added. And we have a history in this town, buildings changing their disposition, like the bar is used to be gas station, the hospital it used to be school, the colony house, which was like a bourgeois of this period used to live there, and now it's basically a hippie communa for people who believe in sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So there's a lot of like those kind of and church is still the church. And post office is now the sheriff's office. So maybe it's not really church. Maybe it was originally something else. Like the cross on the church is just two sticks that they added. Somebody added. Now, I actually, since we're talking, I can jump from other topics, but I'm going to ask you some. First of all, I have a question from Debbie. You're probably familiar with Debbie. She's a legend in Froggy.
Yes.
Taran, we previously looked at drawings, painting of the boy in white to see who he looked like, but did you have a theory on why he appeared as a child, a teen, and also like literal giant amongst tiny triangle trees? Is it possible he's one of the Nephilim? Nephilim is the fallen angels, as far as I know, or sometimes it's like half angel, half human, sometimes, but mostly it's fallen angels.
Yeah, so the Nephilim were the children of the fallen angels, and they became giants. And the word giant is used very often on the show. However, the Nephilim are all the Nephilim are sent to a place called Tartarus, actually, which is sort of like a shadow world that they're sent to. So maybe Fromland is Tartarus, and that's where it all started. I have no idea at this point. I had a pretty specific theory that was very detailed. And I was hoping that the show would just start giving us lots and lots of answers and backstory around midway through season 3. Instead, we're, quite a few episodes into season 4. And I just don't see unless the whole of season 5 is a ton of flashbacks, what I could see is the people in Fromland getting some answers and some of them escaping. And then it's announced that there's going to be from 1864, from 1506, whatever, and there's spin-offs of from. That's something that
Probably
I'm
something
hopeful.
like this is gonna happen because let's face it, this is bread and butter for MGM right now. This is probably the only thing that keeps them from being bankrupt. This is the number one show. Now I have a question myself before there's something like this. One of the things that I know I can discuss them with you. This is bugging me a lot time already. Like there is this scarf on Katri that he's wearing during the ceremonies, and the scarf has all of the symbols of from lore. Basically, it has the sun and the moon, it has the crows, it has what it has also the trees, and I'm like, why is nobody talking about this? Is it something that they did already for Katri? Like Katri was like, okay, I'm in the new book, I need somebody to make me the scarf, and this is a part of new religion, this is book 47, whatever. Or was it just laying there for him to use, and this is something that maybe come from the first cycle? Do you have any like thoughts about this, since we started to talk about church and religious people in this place?
Yeah, I mean, who can say really? I don't think the showrunner's ever going to explain how he got that. I think I remember I used to know what it was called. It's a specific like religious item, actually, rather than just a scarf. It's like I
It's
forgot
like,
what it's called. I think it's like
yeah,
sounds like a coal or something. I don't know. Anyway, they I don't know where it came from, but what I would say, this duality of sun versus moon comes up a lot. Like there's even like a wagon wheel in the barn where like half of the wheel has been removed, so it looks like the spokes of the sun, and the other half is like a crescent moon. So there's clearly like two sides here: moon versus sun. Eloise is the sun for some reason. I don't know how that's going to come into play. We've got, and then we have the star as well. Star magic, twinkle twinkle little star. The star on the back of the number plate of the car. There's a scene where they look out the window, they look at the moon. There's a big star next to it. Obviously, it's CGI'd in. I think what's really interesting about the fallen angels is that there is Sariel, fallen angel of the sun, Shamsiel, fallen angel of the moon, and Kakabiel, fallen angel of the stars. And I wonder whether that's where the sun, moon, and stars symbology is coming from. I wonder whether the peaches symbology is referencing Eve because she ate the fruit of the tree. There's symbols that keep coming up, anchors, right? There's a heart symbol that keeps coming up. What if that represents Lilith for some reason? There's an anchor on the show. What if that represents their fallen angel Abaddon, angel of the deep? So I don't know. I just know that these symbols are coming up. They must map onto something historical, mythological, occult, esoteric. It has to map onto something. But maybe we're going to be really unlucky. And I'm just going to read you a quote. John Griffin's pitch to Jeff Pinkner lasted 2 hours and 45 minutes straight, in which he credits Pinkner for staying awake for the entire presentation. Equally, Jack Bender says the presentation was incredibly detailed, where he pictured a professor at a blackboard in a tweed sports coat going down an endless list in a history class that went back, whilst also being a Rubik's Cube puzzle. Bender said that he became dizzy with the passage of time, so it's obviously there's different stages in history that he's going through, and had to take a break after 45 minutes. So is John Griffin talking for 2 hours and 45 minutes about what we've seen on seasons 1, 2, and 3? I don't think so, to be honest. There's not much, with all respect to the show, not that much has happened. There's a lot of talking, a lot of feelings and emotions. That's great. It's important. But if someone asks you to explain what happened, what were the actual like key events of the show, it's in terms of lore reveals and understanding, there's not much, right?
No.
I'm just like, how can he talk for 2 hours and 40? We don't have 2 hours and 45 minutes,
of anything.
of someone literally explaining plot like origin story and plot. So I'm very confused about this. How can there be this level of detail, complexity, and history?
I don't think it's gonna be that way. Even John Griffin, he was saying there's not gonna be a scene where people are gonna just sit together and just, okay, we understand what's happened. He's promising us that we're gonna get an answer for something, and then the rest of the questions are gonna start to make sense to us. So as soon as you understand the logic of it, it's gonna make sense to everything. Look, I told you, like, I'm ready for both scenarios here. I'm ready for them completely screwing this up. I'm not gonna be upset. I'm not gonna be this girl that breaks up with them after 4 years and tell them it was all for nothing. I had time. I had a good time with you. With you from. I met wonderful people. I did some good videos, I hope. So whatever is, if they're gonna deliver, they gonna, I think, solidify themselves is one of the best mystery box TV shows, because it's very difficult to satisfy people with an ending. And I think Lost was not as bad as people portrayed in this aspect. They just dragged it way too much. They needed to finish it in like season 4 or 5, and it would be way better, I think. I'm just jumping from one idea to another, so I kind of even forgot what I was trying to say. I have this, in this moments of my life, I always say very humbly, I'm like John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, who was famous from jumping from one topic to the other, but I'm definitely not. I'm kidding, of course.
Don't worry. Happy to talk about anything From related. I mean, look, the one thing I would say is, how long is an episode of From? Is it like 53 minutes? Something like that? I can't remember.
Some are shorter, some are longer, but on average like 45, 47 minutes, I think, yes.
Okay.
We were joking even with my audience. I was telling them we were watching From in my Russian audience. We were watching on Twitch. We were watching the first 3 seasons. And I told them, let's make a drinking game out of it. Every time they say we need to talk, we take a shot. And everybody was like, we're not gonna survive this, Igor. We're gonna become alcoholics. It's not possible. They're just talking a lot, and
please.
about important things.
I challenge everyone watching, everyone here, rewatch the first episode of From, and take a shot every time they say the word okay. It's 180 times, dude.
In just one episode?
In just one episode, I think it is. It's or 120. It's a crazy amount of okays. In fact, let me share something with you that I saw today, because it actually feeds into my theory here. How do I share my screen? Sorry, one sec.
Do you think okay is a nod towards something?
I think it's a clue. I genuinely think it's a clue.
Okay, as far as I know, it comes from Zero Kills from Vietnam War or something like this. But I'm not sure about it.
Okay, here it is. Someone got paid to write this dialogue. Okay, so look, they're criticizing the show for using okay too much. This is all in one scene. episode 1 of season 4. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Hey, you're okay. No, I'm okay. Hey, you're okay. He's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. Come on. It's okay. Come on. I've got you. Yeah. Okay. Come on. Let's go. They use the word okay thousands of times on the show. It is insane. And I believe that it's a clue to a real historical figure. Now, let me ask you something. How do you think the history of Japanese people goes back very far in American history?
Of course. It's like, I don't know exactly how long, but I know it's very long.
Japan was one of the most isolated countries in the world. It was a country that didn't open itself up to the world for until much later. It's why their culture is so different to so many others. They westernized very rapidly, but the first Japanese person didn't arrive in America until 1860s at the very earliest. In fact, we know the name of the first Japanese person to live and die in North America. And do you know what her name was?
No.
Can you guess?
Probably something related to okay.
Her name was Okay Ito.
Okay.
And she was famous for refusing to wear Western clothing and only she loved to wear kimono. That was her preference. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's a picture that people thought was of her, and historians said, no, it can't be her, because she preferred to wear traditional kimono. So I find that really interesting. And do you know where she went to? She went to what was called the Wakamatsu Tea and Silk Colony. And isn't it interesting? She's wearing a silk kimono, and there's tea appearing all the time on the show. So if this is a historical show and they're using a Japanese person from the era of the Civil War, there's pretty much only like 5 people that we know who existed in that time period in Japan, like named people. We know that an entire colony of Japanese people came in the 1860s. It was the first, it was the only ever samurai village that existed outside of Japan. It was a family of samurai. They came, and eventually their land got poisoned and they had to leave. It was a whole thing. But Okei Ito, she remained and she died. She died in 1869, I think it was. And they buried her there, and she is the first Japanese person to live and die in Japan. So I actually think that they use the word okay so often on the show because it's a clue.
Well, I have a question to you now, and I think it's very relevant because right now it's already we are already deep into the Taran zone with the names and the connection. This is the level of details that I don't think anybody online is doing other than you. So this is basically a genuine question about the ending of From and You in this situation. So both John Griffin was telling that the director Jack Bender, he has a very one of his favorite stories that he was when he was younger, he was on the interview of Ingvar Bergman, the director, the famous director, and Bergman was asked about one of his movies, I don't think Grief, I think, or something, that
Broken Windmill.
The broken window, obviously it's the symbol for blah 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 blah, and he was answering if you shouldn't write, the broken window will appear there. Now, this is a very subtle story. I have a different story. I don't remember the name of the director, but he had a guy carrying a cart, an empty cart in the middle of the village. And he's no horse, he's just holding the cart and he's carrying it himself, and the cart is empty. And he was asked, how did you even got to think about this genius scene, that this genius is basically symbolic of, the struggle of the proletariat, which is basically working people in the USSR. And it's empty, so he's struggling, but his life is still empty. And the director was we just didn't have. The movie was too short, and I just needed another scene to get to the needed level of time, and we just thought it looks nice, and we filmed it. So he didn't put any symbolism to it, and people just saw it. So you preparing yourself that a lot of those things that we discussed today, most likely, I would say even I would bet my money on it, are not gonna play in the end. If they are, dude, I'm gonna build you a statue in the United Kingdom, whatever. I'm gonna start saving money for this because it's gonna be oh my God, how is it even possible? But so the basic question is, From ends, and it's completely something else, and it's nothing hits. There's no Beotux, there's no John Cabot, there's tarot cards are not playing a role. How are you feeling in this situation? And you're okay, whatever, I'm gonna write a book about this, which you definitely should, because the story is freaking amazing. Or is it you're devastated, you're feeling like you wasted your time or something like this? It's just basically me thinking about you, thinking for your wellness.
I would be frustrated at the number of clues that they've left on the show. If all these clues that they've left, all these symbols and things like that, if they don't map to anything at all, and they were just left there to see what people would make of them, then I would be disappointed. I want the clues.
Do you think maybe?
Sorry, I want the.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
I want the clues to correlate to something. It may be that I got the answer wrong, but I want the answer to relate to the question. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's about it as far as I'm concerned. If they have some entirely other historical occult thing that I haven't considered, where there's a heart and and an anchor, and the peaches are explained and whatever, and it all makes sense. And it's not a colony in North America. It's started in the 1860s. It's just someone went back in time, or some weird explanation like that. Like it's a civil war, hoodoo type events, which is part of my theory, but a very small part. I would be happy so long as so long as all the stuff that they left on the show actually correlates to a historical framework or an esoteric framework. If there's no framework, I'll be very disappointed. Yeah.
Are we talking about the big things, or like for you? You said something in the beginning of our live stream that this is one of the, not the beginning. We were talking about Donna, and you said one of the first things that actors learns is not to put hands in the pockets. So it kind of made me understand that you're probably familiar with theater or acting, and
Sure.
like a lot of things that you specified can be clues, definitely, but can also simultaneously be just the guy saying night scary because his English is not very good and he's just scared, afraid of the night, or the extras.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, like obvious clues, like clues that are just like, come on. They have Elgin talking about tiny knitting little owls, right? We got that kind of stuff is just weird. I'd just be like, really? That's what you came up with? Someone knitting? She loved to knit owls, man. Like that story. I feel like it has to be a clue. Like I would be very disappointed if it was just a big mess of randomness, and it never really related to anything. I don't know. But the hearts are definitely a clue on the show. Like they literally have a heart symbol cut out of the bell, and like actors have shared it. Like Christy has a rock with a heart on one side and an anchor on the other. But the number 47 comes up all the bloody time.
Yeah.
Like I want the clues to relate to something. But I'll be honest, as time has gone by, I've become less. I have less and less faith in the writers and actually the set designers that all the clues that are there are going to be explained or even mean anything. For example, I learned that Creelman Cola is not a clue. It's a reference to one of the set designers. Clary's peach truck is also named after one of the set designing crew. Ethan Clarke, who wrote that article about the Matthews family missing, Ethan Clarke is someone who works on the set. So some of the clues are inside jokes. They're not clues that are meant to be. Maybe you can solve them by learning more about the crew. So technically, it's like an Easter egg, right?
Yeah.
But I'm slightly concerned that some of the things I've interpreted as clues are inside jokes, or just like window dressing, where they're like, we're going to add loads of teapots because we think that's like a really cool, like thematic thing, people drinking tea. Maybe the tea isn't a clue at all, but I'd be frustrated. So yeah, I guess that's where I'm coming from. I want to be able to point at answers and say, those were the clues that they left for that answer. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen that virtually at all.
Well, there are clues that, like in your face, like 47. You cannot really ignore that, right?
Yeah.
It's there, and some of the things that can be, I think, interpreted in different ways, like extras playing chess and night scary, and even the owls. It can be just, I'm just talking about owls. Maybe it's just, one of those dumb conversation about people are not feeling comfortable in this place. Like, it's just, of course, my opinion. What else? People are writing, Taran is so smart. Duh. You're obviously very smart. Well, we probably need to start to wrap up. Because we were planning for 1 hour.
And it's late almost for you. I forgot how late it is. What time is it then?
It's almost 1 a.m. But I have a small child, so for me it's just the beginning of the day. I need to take a shower, like get ready. It's been 2 days for me not making videos, and I probably gonna make some tomorrow. So I need to rest a little bit. But we can discuss I think with you for hours and hours and hours. Now, for me, like the thing that got me start to be a little bit worried about this TV show is, since I read parts of the original script, and Jade was a 19-year-old girl that was driving to her spring vacation or something like this, and the creators were telling us that the lore is written and all the big reveals are written from the beginning, like they're not coming and making it up as they go. And it kind of like the whole reincarnation didn't make sense to me at all. So what was that 19-year-old girl was supposed to be the reincarnation of what, Tabitha's husband at this period? She just reincarnated as a girl. It just maybe, but so far it looks like reincarnations are not changing gender here in this situation, right? We have Christopher and Miranda.
Yeah.
We have Jade and Tabitha. It looks men staying men, women are staying women. So like this is something that kind of made my eyebrows raise. But once again, whatever happens, I'm right now speaking to Taran Matharu, which I would probably never get a chance to meet, if not from, right? Like what are there chances when we intersect and we talk about this TV show and we have those discussions? So for me, like meeting people like here in the chat, and I'm telling you Debbie, and you know who Debbie is, and there are a lot of other people here who we are probably all familiar with, and just the journey is, for me, is way better. But honestly, of course, if this turns out to be completely shit, of course I'm gonna be disappointed too. Of course it's gonna leave, like, I'm not gonna be broken or like, oh my god, it was a waste of time, but I'm gonna be like, okay, now we need all to pitch in and go to Taran and make him open a Kickstarter for a new book which tells a better story than what we already had. Because right now you're telling me like the Nephilim, the 7 Nephilim, and we have the demons, and I'm like, I'm familiar with this mythology only through Supernatural, the CW show.
Yeah, but look at the Mark of Cain. Look at the Mark of Cain in that show. It looks exactly like the F symbol we see everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually what the apocryphal texts say. They say that the Mark of Cain was one of the letters that spells Yahweh. Mm-hmm. And that letter, if you go back to the original version of that letter, the Canaanite version, it's that F symbol that you see on Supernatural. Mm-hmm. And isn't it interesting that we're seeing it on From as well?
It's kind of similar. Like if I'm thinking about Hebrew, it's like small line, then it's like this and this and that. So in the Hebrew Bible, you're not supposed to say the word. I know I'm not a religious person. We used to study Bible in school, but I was always getting bad grades. I didn't understand why do I need this in my life. And when you start telling me you probably know way more than me about Azazel, and I'm like, the only thing I know that in Hebrew, go to hell is basically go to Azazel. If you translate it literally, it's Lech Azazel. It's like go to Azazel. So I'm not I'm learning a lot of things in the process. ACAP had no idea about this guy before the episode, so I was researching it before the episode. So this is what I really love about this TV show, like those TV shows that I want to cover, like Pluribus, I'm starting to read about, and Severance, I'm learning about the science of brain chemistry. So when a TV show makes me go online and start learning new things, this is the TV show that I want to cover on my YouTube channel. You wanted to show something? You were sharing the screen?
Yeah, sorry. I shared my screen quickly just to show you the symbols that I was talking about. I don't know. Can you see it yet?
Yeah, I'm opening it right now. For some reason, I need to click watch stream every time you're doing this. Yeah, that's probably Paleo Hebrew. That's like old Hebrew. That's not the one that's been used right now.
So you see the letter He here? Mm-hmm. That is the Mark of Cain.
Yep.
And they use that letter on Supernatural because that is what the apocryphal texts say was put on Cain as punishment for killing his brother. And isn't there fratricide on the show? Sarah kills her brother. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was quite interesting. So this is the symbol that they believed. And doesn't it look like the symbol on the show? Mm-hmm. So I believe that this is a biblical origin. And did you know on Ethan's trailer, they had his name and they'd put stickers on there with clues. And one of the stickers was Noah's Ark with the animals coming out. And obviously Cain forms part of Noah's Ark.
Probably it goes into the biblical history here, all this lore.
And of course we have all these references to floods, don't forget.
Yeah, there is the Victor's drawing, yeah.
No, but also Acosta talks about a flood. And in the article about the Matthews family missing, it also talks about flooding. So there's a lot of references to flooding on the show. And remember, Jade mentions a tsunami as well when he's talking about causality.
Yep.
So I wonder whether the flood references and also Acosta, the actor who plays Acosta, she's been given a clue. And she keeps going around talking about, she says, why aren't people talking about the water clues? There's something about water. And I've watched all these interviews with her, and whenever she's asked about theories and stuff, she just talks about water. So someone, John Griffin or someone has said, there's something about water on this show, and she kept bringing it up. So I wonder if that's related to the flooding.
I'm definitely...
Anyway, sorry, we were wrapping up. My apologies.
No, I mean, there's no reason to apologize. I don't know when I'm gonna get you here live next time, so I'm just wanna use every possibility and every idea that's in your head. There's a lot of for me professional. There's a lot of help. Like even if I'm not taking your ideas, sometimes you just start a direction, and I'm like, okay, maybe he's right about this one, but there is something I can add to it, and I love this process of building those theories together. But anyway, we probably need to wrap up. I need to prepare myself for the night. And I thank you so much for joining. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for writing. I apologize if I missed your question, but it was lively chat, so there was a lot of interesting people there, and I just impossible for one person to keep track of everything, but hopefully we're gonna get Taran a couple of more times. I think everybody enjoys it here when we have this kind of a guest here, and I thank everybody for watching. Thank you so much, and probably gonna see everybody tomorrow in one of my videos. Taran, you want to say your goodbyes?
Yes, thanks everyone for watching, who could put up with me jumping around with my random historical stuff. It's hard to explain history when it's sort of half remembered. So I hope I did a good job. And thank you very much for having me on, Igor. I appreciate it. And hopefully, towards the end of this season, when we've had a few more revelations, we understand a bit more about what's going on, I can jump back on and we can see if anything I've theorized about is even close. But we'll have to see. I don't know how they're going to, I don't know how 2 hours and 45 minutes of detailed list-like historical explanation is going to fit into what we have left. But let's see, huh? Let's see.
Probably not going to see all the 2 hours and 40 minutes. Probably they're going to leave it to us to fill in the blanks. Thank you, Taran. Thank you so much. We're definitely going to have some flashbacks this season, so more historical events. Hopefully it will give us just a little more than just a glimpse of a girl screaming next to the stone. Maybe just